And that's why the coaching industry has gone through these like cycles now, because people pop up who are making sacrifices that aren't sustainable. They hit a pinnacle, they can't sustain the sacrifices, and they fall off. And then the next wave, because they followed the previous wave's leadership. And so at the top of this industry, you have cycles of people who can't sustain the way they're living. And it's nothing wrong with the business model. The business model isn't where you solve it. You have people coming out with new ways of running the business. They're like, oh, do recurring revenue. Stop doing upfront packages. It's not the business model, dude. It's the heart posture. But nobody's ready to have that conversation because people aren't ready to accept Jesus. They're not ready for it. They think that God's will. What if God's will doesn't align with my will? What if God's will is that I don't have these things? Then if I give my life over to God, I'm not going to have these things. And it's like, dude, that's the furthest thing from the truth. People seem to think that it's one or the other. You're either obsessed with financial success and business, and therefore you go on to do very, very well for yourself, or you aren't obsessed, and because of that, you don't have the competitive edge in the market. You lose that to people who are obsessed, who work harder than you, and gosh, wow, that's just such a binary way of thinking, and it's a way of thinking that led to me having to rehaul my entire life once I had a family and figure out where my work fit in, considering I have a whole new life and a whole new set of priorities now. And it's, I think, the number one contributing factor to the coaching industry at large going through a huge rehaul right now. And I'm sure you've noticed it. It's just like, the people who were once leaders are now either doing something totally different or the big names have changed, and even people who have followed me pretty closely, you've seen me change a bunch as well. And I honestly think it's because the leaders in the industry have been convincing people that you're either all in or you're all out, and it's very binary. And I want to talk about in this video a couple different topics. I want to talk about burnout, and I want to talk about like the spiritual side of burnout, not just the physical side. You're just not eating enough, or you're not hydrating enough, or you're not getting your sleep, or you're sacrificing too many physical needs. I want to talk as well about like just what it looks like to live like a healthy life and put your business in context with having a healthy life. Because for the longest time, sure, was I making boatloads of money? Yeah, 100%. I mean, I made like way more money than I ever thought. But it wasn't really worth it looking back because honestly, like, did I make a bunch of money? Yes, but it's like, at what cost, right? Did I really live a life that I wanted to live, or was I chasing something? I recall a video on my channel where, and I have it set to private because it's just a little too vulnerable. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be a vulnerable, open guy. I'm going to build relationships with my audience. But I found myself like crying when I was making the video. And I look back, it's like a different freaking person. It's wild. And this video of me, I'm literally confessing like how I'm just so driven by like envy. And I'm like naming names of people that I envy, and like how frustrated I am that I can't catch up to where I feel like I'm supposed to be because these certain people have gone on to do so well so quick. And it was such a lonely life of just like being driven so heavily by like envy, And I don't think this is everybody's problem, but it was definitely my problem. And I think the coaching industry in particular, people are very open about how much they make. And, if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself, like I didn't, then you're going to feel like you don't size up. And when you do feel like you don't size up, you're going to feel like you need to catch up. And if you don't catch up, then there's something wrong with you, something wrong with your business. You stop listening to your own intuition. One of the things that I did was I stopped making content for the longest time, even though I love making content. Like I was like, oh, other people who are doing $1 million months, they're doing ads. And so I was like, I'm just going to focus on ads. And like ads are good and they work. And one of my businesses that I'm launching now, we do 100% ads. But the best clients and the best relationships have always come from content. And so, but it's just, you get caught up in trying to reach a certain point that you forget even why you're doing it. And I think the core that I'm trying to describe in this video is like, I'm trying to get people to understand that you don't have to be obsessed with business in order to do well in business. You don't have to be obsessed with it. It doesn't have to be the center of your life. in order for you to do well in business. And I used to think that it had to be. And I recently had a call with a mentor of mine who is worth well over multiple 8 figures. And he's just talking me through, because I have a son now and I have a wife, and it's like, it was starting to affect my home. Like, I wasn't a present husband. I wasn't a present father. And, I was maybe physically present, but I wasn't emotionally available. Like I just didn't have the space for my wife's like stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have to be as a husband. And we were just really in an unhealthy place. And a lot of it's just because I was redesigning myself. I've had to reinvent myself for this new season. And a big part of that is putting the right things at the center of my life. The center of my life, honestly, it used to be 100% like how much money I made, and that was it. And I still want to make a bunch of money. I still want to do well in it, but this is what people don't understand. They think that if the center of your life isn't business, then you must not care about business. It's so ridiculous, and it's so frustrating, because it's like you can still, frankly, the people who do really well long-term in business, it's not the center of their life. And this is what people don't seem to understand. If you talk to these people, they have a very sustainable life plan. They have a life plan that precedes their business plan. And their business plan exists within their life plan. And then because of that, the business becomes sustainable. And then because of that, time is on their side. And when time is on their side, they end up succeeding, because time is the number one variable in anything. Time's going to keep moving. Time is the only constant force within this physical universe. And if the only primary constant force is against you, you're effed. Like, honestly, you are effed. And I won't say the full words, because just for, as principle. But you're effed, right? But if it's on your side, then you have the wind on your back, right? And so I just think, like, I think that I've actually lost like certain clients and certain respect of certain people, because I've just been very open about, like, yeah, it's not the main thing in my life anymore. And people are like, oh, and they turn away, and they're like, I'm going to go find somebody who is obsessed. But then here I am, I just helped the client go from 20 grand a month to 100 grand a month in literally 30 days flat after launching his ads. And it was no freaking work. It was like a couple Slack messages and a couple meetings and some basic stuff, So I think what it is maybe I had to go through a season of obsession in order to arrive at a place where I don't have to be obsessed in order to do well. I don't know how to describe it, but I will say that you're going to hear this message from a lot of people, and when you hear this message, know you're listening to somebody who is they're driving a V8 2025 sports car 100 miles an hour off a cliff, okay? They're going to destroy their life. And this message is something like, if you don't sacrifice for your goals become the sacrifice. Things like this. Or it's things like, if you don't go absolutely all in, then you're not going to get any reward. And look, don't get me wrong. There are seasons for that. But you have to have the wisdom to know when it's time to stop freaking doing that. When you've built momentum and you can ride momentum, and if all you have is the momentum, what's going to happen, and this is, again, why the coaching industry has rewired and shifted so much, is because the things that we were being taught and the primary messages in the industry were not healthy messages. And I was kind of a victim to this, where I built up to a great point, but it just didn't work. Like, my life didn't work. I didn't want what I'd built. I'd built like a prison. It was a very profitable prison, but it was like a prison, And I didn't know how to succeed outside of my whole life being about this thing. But I didn't freaking want the thing. What I wanted all along was just sustainability. What I wanted was freedom and flexibility. What I wanted was to work with clients that I like working with, and to have free time and space to do the things that I wanted to do, which I now have. And I've built my business around these things. And I lay down super easy clients for my $5,000 to $40,000 packages. And it's super simple, and it's not hard. And it's literally, the difference is putting my life first and the things that actually matter in my life before the business, and then giving the business just enough space within my life that it's kind of forced to perform. It's like, look, if you're not going to give me what I want, I'm not going to give you what you're asking me. It's really kind of setting very clear boundaries with it, not because you don't love it. You can still love it, and you can still want it, and you can still be in love with the work, but it can't come before your health. And this is spiritual health. This is relational health. This is your physical health. This is your mental health. These are the other components of your life that it just seems like people just like think you're going to get to a certain place in revenue, and then you're going to be able to take care of these other things in your life. And then you're going to be able to, reconnect with your family. And then you're going to be able to reconnect with your friends. And then you're going to be able to, get back on a good diet and all this stuff. And it's like, dude, that's the dumbest thing ever. It's such a dumb opinion. It like ignores how things work. Like, how you are today is how you're going to be tomorrow. And if the way that you are today isn't sustainable, then you're not going to succeed in the long run. You're going to succeed for a year or two, and then it's all going to crumble because your personal life is going to be a total mess. Your mental health is going to be a mess. You're going to be a mess, okay? Even though you have a bunch of money, your financial life is going to be a mess. Just because you have a lot of money, by the way, doesn't mean that your financial life can't be a mess. Like, there's people who have millions upon millions of dollars liquid in the bank, but their financial life is a mess. There's taxes that they have to catch back up on, or there's loans that they took out, or there's people they made promises to, or whatever. And all that stuff happens so quickly in quick succession when you're in that space of just making it everything. And people don't talk about that. People just seriously don't talk about that. So what I think is important is that you build businesses that serve your end, and that you build businesses that actually give you energy, and so you have energy that you can put back into it. And I don't know. I was caught with this like bug, right? And I think what it was honestly, there was people that I'd helped get going that then didn't have the boundaries that I had and sacrificed things that I wasn't willing to sacrifice, that then went way quicker than I did. And I got envious, and I got jealous, and I started to compare, and that tripped me up for a good like 2 years. I was like caught up in this like wave of trying to create a certain amount of financial success because I thought that that's what like would give me like an identity. I thought that that's what would fill the void in my heart. And I'm here to tell you guys, there's one thing that can fill that void in your heart, and that is our Lord and Savior. That is Jesus Christ, dude. There's literally nothing on this planet that is ever going to come close to giving you what your soul is lacking than a living, breathing relationship with Jesus Christ. That's where you're going to find that, okay? Business is just a silly little game that we get to play while we pass the time before we move into eternity, okay? It's a place where we get to sharpen our character and sharpen our senses, and it's like Call of Duty, dude. It's like when you get a 25 kill streak in Call of Duty and you get to nuke the thing. That's when like you make $1 million. It's just like fun, and it just has to be that. And if it's not that, then honestly, I mean, you're screwing yourself, dude. You're not. It's so frustrating because I know what people are thinking when they listen to this, because I was that guy. I was the guy who was listening to people say this, saying, "Oh, that guy's a loser. That guy's not gonna make a lot of money. That guy's not on the winning path." And it's like, sure, man, do I make 30% less every month than maybe I would have had I been totally obsessed? Sure, freaking whatever. But I'm on a way more sustainable path to getting it. Way more sustainable. And the pieces of my life actually work together again as opposed to working against me. And, it's really very, very harmful, this idea that business and money should be the center of your life. And this is what people tell you. They tell you to get obsessed. They tell you to go all in. They tell you to make the sacrifices. They tell you to do all this stuff. And I think for a season, do that. Do it. To get above water, do it. Once you're above water and once you're earning enough where you don't have to be like afraid of your expenses and stuff, then you need to think about leverage. You need to think about building a business and building a life that serve each other. And that it's way harder. It's way more intellectually draining. It's way harder to plot and plan a business and a life that serve each other. And that's why people don't do it, is so they just focus on business. Like myself, I think, I don't know, I just have a very obsessive personality, and I just want to figure things out and just go, And it takes time to slow down and think about the life you're building, not just the business you're building. And people tend to think that their business, like here in my head, I'm a very visual guy. I thought my business was the umbrella that my life lived within, right? And now I see them totally differently. Like my life and my business are completely mixed. It's not my business succeeds, and when my business is succeeding, then I can permit myself to do other things, which is literally how I lived. It's more Jesus is at the center, everything pours out from that. If it's his will that I succeed, then I'm going to succeed. If it's not his will that I don't, then I don't. There's total surrender in my heart, and there's a sense of peace and clarity that comes with that a lot of people are lacking. And then out from that, the new age people, the manifestation people, all talk about like detaching from your goals, and like, when you're detached, then you attract things. And I think that there's like, it's almost like a half truth. Like, yes, when you don't care, you get it. But those are all artificial forms of not caring. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you do care. The true form of not caring is a spiritual walk with Jesus Christ. And it's having things outside of your business that matter more than the business. Like, honestly, like today's a totally free day. I have no meetings on the calendar. I've got nothing going on today. Like nothing. I'll respond to some Slack messages, make some content, make some money, And literally, I'm just going to go downstairs and I'm going to hang out with my wife and my kid. And it's like, that's way more important and way more valuable to me than anything else. And it doesn't even come close. It just doesn't even freaking come close. So, look, guys, I don't know. I feel like I'm not communicating this with the quality that it needs communicated. I think the core of it is like, if you want to succeed well above and beyond other people, don't put business at the center. Like, it sounds counterintuitive, but it's a very low resolution, very binary way of thinking that if you obsess over something and you grind it out and you just like, just work like a dog on something, that like you'll have success. And yes, you will have temporary success. You will. But humans, we're like nature. We're like trees. Like, if a tree is just focused on getting as tall as it can get, it's like, and it's not focused on building out branches and creating, good leaves so it can get more sun, photosynthesis. If it's not focused on its roots, if it doesn't think about where it's planted and the soil that it's in and everything, and it's just focused on how tall it can get, it's gonna die. And I just think that that's just such a scary message, and especially like the YouTube scene, which is like what I was involved in. And there's people in this scene where they make being obsessed with business look so chic and look like such a great way to live life. And maybe they tell you to be obsessed because that's what you need, but maybe they're not. I don't know. But the people who have sustainably succeeded, business isn't at the center. Like, it's not. It's they look at it, they're like, what's the easiest way to make a lot of money that you know what I mean? And they just follow the easy path. That's it. And the easy path to making a lot of money sustainably is obviously going to be the path that adds the most value to people. So to make easy money isn't necessarily to scam people. But they're just looking at, like, what's the best thing that I can sell, the easiest, the most scalable, and I'm just going to sell that, and I'm just going to do more of that. Like, it's not that hard. And when you make it such an idol, like the Bible talks about making things idols, when you make it an idol, it flies away from you. It just flies away from you. And it maybe doesn't in the short term, but it especially does in the long term, because it's like, if all it is business, which it literally all my life was business, is insane. Like, I literally almost didn't get married because I was like, if I get married, then I'm not going to have enough time to work. Which is like, I respect how obsessed I got, but I'm a little bit sad. I feel like I wasted a lot of time. And like, I'm 25 now, and I'm figuring out what the next phase of life looks like, because it's certainly not what it was. But I think the next phase of life is fundamentally it's put Jesus in the middle, put my family in the middle, put my own well-being in the middle, and let business generate from that place. You know what I mean? And like, I know that sounds maybe so obvious, but it's like, it's not obvious when you're in the mix of it, It's almost like a cult. I was at these masterminds, and it's these guys who just like, they're making so much money, and it's so tantalizing. And it's like, well, that must be the way, and we live in such a weird world where there's so many questions and there's so much confusion, and you see somebody who, they sound so confident and they're making so much money, so they must be right. You know what I mean? And so you follow that path, and it's just not it. It's just not it. And so I just wanted to make a video talking about that, because This is why the coaching industry has like gone through so many iterations and different versions, and it's because the leaders, the ones who pop up and pop off, they're making sacrifices that aren't sustainable. And then they fall off because those sacrifices that aren't sustainable catch up with them. And then another wave of people who are making sacrifices that aren't sustainable come into play, and then they fall off. And so I'm on a mission right now for myself, honestly, to just have a very quiet, sustainable, lovely success. And I don't need people to observe it. I don't need anybody to see it. I don't need to be famous. I don't want to be famous. I would actually prefer to kind of stay in my little corner in this industry. I like the little corner I have. Like, I don't want to be a big guy. Like, I want to be right where I'm at. I want to be exactly where I'm at, which is, I'll get a handful of people inquiring about my high-level products and programs a week, and they're lay down easy sales because they've consumed a bunch of content. And then I have other businesses that I practice the frameworks and things that I teach my clients to within. One of these businesses just this week had a $9,000 sales day, and it was very easy. And I just think that, like, I don't, but it doesn't need to, I don't want it to be in the middle. Like, when I start to notice that it's like taking up the middle, like one of the things that my mentor did, who I said I was on the phone with, he's worth multiple 8 figures liquid. And he's like, dude, I just had to get out of Indiana, which is where I live. He's like, we're in Florida right now. I took my family out here, and he's got, I think, 3 or 4 kids. And he's like, I was just getting so busy, and it was just so much stuff on my plate, and it's just like I wasn't in touch with the Lord. I wasn't in Scripture. I was out of touch with my wife. I feel like I hadn't talked to her in like a week or two. I was so busy, and it's all stuff that could make me money, but it's like I had to get away from it. And I'm like, man, I love that. I think that's so cool, and I've come to really respect like not putting business at the center. And I used to disrespect people who didn't put business at the center because I thought in my arrogance that meant that they weren't going to do as well as I was, and that ultimately the barometer of business is how much money you have, because that's what people say. It's like business is a game, and the score of the game is how much money you make. Not true. That's like saying marriage is a game, and the score of marriage is how much sex you have. Or that's like saying freaking health is a game, and the measure of health is the number on the scale. It's like you can't boil things down to one number. You just can't. They're too complex. You can't do that. You can't boil business down just to how much money you have. There's people who have tens of millions of dollars of liquid in the bank and have done really, really well, and I'm not sure I would trade places with them. I really honestly don't think I would, because I don't have all the information. All I know is that they have a bunch of money. That's all I know. So I just think that there's like a healthier, more mature version of what it looks like to succeed sustainably that I'm stepping into. And it's taken me forever to get to this place because, honestly, it feels like leaving a cult. Like, to be real with you, I have this, for some reason, an alarm set for 10 a.m. on this watch that I haven't turned off yet. It feels like leaving a freaking cult, dude. It's like, it literally feels like that. It feels like I'm having to like unwire all of this, like, all of these beliefs in order to like do it more healthily. It's like, it's literally like Jesus is the core of everything, but you have people who abuse that and create cults. Business is the same thing. It's like, it's a great thing. It's like you can make a bunch of money and like help a ton of people and employ people and build things and make, millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, and set your family up. But there's people who abuse that. And it's like, you just got to learn what those lines are. And I just think a lot of people are just, and myself included, I was too young to know what those lines were. And I wouldn't say that I regret it because I've picked up so many skills along the way. I think I had to be obsessed for a season. I think this is all God's plan. I don't believe in regret. I think I just am a little sad for myself because it's like, I had all these people who looked up to me and all these people who saw me as like this like pinnacle. And deep inside in my lonely moments, like I didn't feel that way at all. I felt kind of like a fraud. I felt like I was leading people into a life that I myself didn't even really want. And I think that all of that just kind of caught up to me officially, like once I got married. Like people probably observed that once I got married, like I stopped being very loud because I just had questions that I couldn't answer. I was like, this isn't going to work, like with being married. But that's the beautiful thing about marriage is it's a holy sanctification process. Like that's what marriage is. Outside of a religious context, marriage honestly doesn't make a lot of sense. I would side a lot with like the red pill people who are like, yeah, probably don't get married. But if you believe in the ultimate purpose of your life to be becoming more like Jesus, and to be more like Jesus, then it's like, yeah, marriage is the best thing you can do, because it forces you to come to terms with certain realities of yourself and of the world, because you're in close proximity to another person and you're having to carry all of their problems alongside your own. And so, look, I mean, I just want to make a video about this, because I just feel like I want to be a leader, an example of what it looks like to succeed in business when business isn't your idol. Okay. I worshiped at that altar, and it gave me back a damaged heart filled with envy and filled with lust and vices and greed and comparison. And I worship at a different altar now. And it's so funny. Like, nothing's actually changed in my bit. Like, you think, you have this idea that if you change what's at the core, you're going to lose it all. And I did lose it all. In terms of like what it felt like, what it was like, but I still, dude, amazing especially for my age. Like, I feel like at 25, like the idea that I can, like, literally, I've had people find me, book a call, no questions asked, pay for a $25,000 program, done deal, and just this last week, like I said, like we're filling the calendar up for our new offer. It's like, but it's like it's not the center of my life anymore. It's just something that, it's a game, and it's just a game. And you can't get obsessed with the game. You have to have something outside of the game. Like, if the game is all you have, it's just a recipe for just monstrous disaster. And that's why the coaching industry has gone through these like cycles now, because people pop up who are making sacrifices that aren't sustainable. They hit a pinnacle, they can't sustain the sacrifices, and they fall off. And then the next wave, because they followed the previous wave's leadership. And so at the top of this industry, you have cycles of people who can't sustain the way they're living. And it's nothing wrong with the business model. The business model isn't where you solve it. You have people coming out with new ways of running the business. They're like, oh, do recurring revenue. Stop doing upfront packages. It's not the business model, dude. It's the heart posture. But nobody's ready to have that conversation because people aren't ready to accept Jesus. They're not ready for it. They think that God's will, what if God's will doesn't align with my will? What if God's will is that I don't have these things? Then if I give my life over to God, I'm not going to have these things. And it's like, dude, that's the furthest thing from the truth. That's not how God works. It's like, this is, again, the most clarifying idea that I got from a mentor. And he told me, he's like, dude, like, think about it like this. It's like the assets and the things that you have. Let's say the owner of your life was a Saudi Arabian oil billionaire. Let's just think about it like that. He owns your life. He's in charge of your life in every way. Saudi Arabia, oil, multi-billionaire, maybe trillionaire. One of those guys that's like not even on the map. They're so wealthy. You know what I mean? Like 10 times wealthier than who we think is the wealthiest person in the world. Okay. Let's say that they are lending you all of the things that you currently have, all the money that you have in the bank. They've even the woman that you've married is their daughter. Okay. If you're married and the body that you have is lent to you from this person. Don't you think that if you said, hey, you know what, whatever you want me to do with this, I'm going to do with it. Whatever you have in mind for this, I'm ready to do it. I'm your humble servant. Don't you think that they would end up giving you a lot more? It's like, yeah, they would. But the problem is people are living out here thinking that they're their own God, that Saudi Arabian prince doesn't exist. And by the way, our Heavenly Father, our God, is infinitely more influential and infinitely more powerful than that Saudi Arabian prince analogy. Like, if I take care of the Saudi Arabian prince's like daughter, let's say I married his daughter's my wife. Don't you think that he'd be like, you know what? You're kind of an F up here and you kind of don't get this quite yet. You're not very mature in this area, but you know what? You take great care of my daughter. I'm going to take care of you. Like, don't you think that that's how it would work? And it's like, yes, that is 100% how it works. But people aren't ready for that because they hate the idea of surrender because we have crazy ego in our culture, driven by narcissism. And we don't like the idea of our life not being completely up to us. There's a part of your ego that loves that idea that your life is 100% up to you. And it's just freaking not. Like, God is so much more in control. And if you're doing well right now, know that that is the grace of God and the grace of God alone that has enabled you to do well. And if you're going through a dark night of the soul season, know that that is because God is purifying your heart and preparing you for the new thing. So, just want to make this video. Okay, I'm gonna keep making videos on this channel, and I genuinely think that YouTube has me shadow banned, but I don't even freaking care at this point. Like, I'm not trying to get views. I'm just trying to document the journey, and if I get a bunch of views, great. This drives plenty enough business for me to be happy, and for me to make the amount of money that I want to make the investments that I want to make, and build the wealth that I want to have. So, but I'm gonna keep documenting it, keep sharing it, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. I know it was kind of a crazy one, but there it is.